Shalom Aleichem, the Mishnah Yomi is continuing for Tanit Esther in the 9th chapter of Eiruvin, Mishnah Bet. The second Mishnah, Gog Godol Samach Lakatan, a bigger roof which is adjoining a smaller roof. And we're talking about a situation where there's no Eruv between the two houses underneath. So an Eruv would allow all sorts of carrying between the houses and the roof, but here there's no Eruv. So what's going on here is Hagodol Mutter. They can carry from the house to the larger roof, katan asr, but the smaller roof is forbidden. Now what's going on is the smaller roof is narrower. So if you're on the smaller roof, then one of the sides of that smaller roof is entirely open without any barrier to the larger roof. But if you're standing within the larger roof, on top of the larger house, and you're looking towards that smaller roof, then you do have two sides. It's kind of like a letter T, where the top of the T is the big roof, and imagine it's a nice big wide top of the T, and it has two sides that are, the edge of the roof or a fence or a barrier that sort of form a fourth wall, and then in the middle of that wall, it's open to the smaller roof. So that larger roof has enclosures on all four sides, whereas the smaller roof does not. It has sort of a closure or an edge on three sides, but that fourth side is wide open to the larger roof. Now, again, as we learned yesterday, if there were kalim, utensils that are mutter to move on Shabbos, that were already on the roof when Shabbos started, then they could be moved on that roof, but utensils in the house could not be moved up onto the roof. The Mishnah continues with a similar case, Chatzar Gedola, Shenifritza Lekatana. If you had a nice big chutzner, a larger one, and then it was breached open into a smaller one. So there was a fence there or a wall there, and it fell down. Now you have this opening where the big one is open into the smaller one. Gedola muteret, so they can still carry into the big courtyard, katana asura. The small one, they cannot. Now again, there's no eruv here between the two courtyards, so why can't they? Mipnei shehi kefitcha shagedola. The small courtyard has become like an entrance to the big one. Now, we have a similar layout here to the two roofs, and if you have the picture book, it helps, or the picture in the bottom of the art scroll, it helps, that from the point of view of the smaller courtyard, they have an entire wall missing. So it's like they just have three walls now, and that fourth wall is wide open to the bigger courtyard. But from the point of view of the bigger courtyard, they still have walls in all four directions, even though they have an opening in one of the walls that opens into that smaller chatzar. This brings a final case, a chatzar shenifritza l'reshut rabbi. So this time the wall fell not between chatzar A and chatzar B, but from chatzar A to the public street outside the chatzar. So what's the din? Hamachnis mitocha l'reshut rabim. Somebody who brings something from there to the reshut rabim, omer shasa yachid l'tocha, or from a private domain like a house or apartment within that chatzar into this chatzar, is chayiv. Divri Rabbi Eliezer. Eliezer says he's chayiv. Says we have a big problem here, that in this chatzar, the space where the wall used to be is considered reshus harabim. Now, the Tosfos Yontif cites the Gemara that it's not really the original reshus harabim, the original street, but you understand if there used to be a wall right next to a street and then the wall's missing and you have a lot of traffic on the street, it will kind of overflow into that space where the wall used to stand. So also the traffic being adjacent to Reshus Harabim, this area where the wall used to be has the status of Reshus Harabim, so somebody bringing from the house there is going to be a biblical transferring, a biblical malacha. Chachamim omrim, but the other sages say, mitocha l'Reshus Harabim, from that area into the street itself, Reshus Harabim l'tocha, or from the street into that area, potter. Now, it's pater of l'asr, you're not supposed to do that transference, but he's not chayiv on a biblical level. He would not bring a offering, a chatas, if he did it by mistake. Why? B'nei shehike karmelit. This new area created when the wall fell down and breached open is like a karmelit. Now, as we learned in Masechet Shabbat, we've mentioned in Eiruvin, a karmelit is something in between. Carmel is it's like a vineyard. It's like this area where it's not really private, not really public. It's sort of an in-between kind of thing. So it's neither a Reshus Rabim or Reshus Yachid. So rabbinically, it's forbidden to carry from a Carmelite to an individual domain, a private domain, Reshut Yachid, or to the public domain, the public street. But on a biblical level, it's kind of in between, and it's not biblically chayiv to bring an offering for doing that transference. Now let's go on to Mishnah Gimel. Now you notice that we, in all these cases, Mishnah Bet, we didn't tell you, the author of the Mishnah didn't tell you if the wall actually fell down on Shabbos or before Shabbos. So now we're going to say there's a chiluk here. A courtyard where two of the walls fell down on two sides, or a breach on two sides, can bite shenifratz mishtei rechosav, or also a house that had the walls breached and opened on two sides, it can mavui, or a mavui, our famous alleyway from the first parak, the first Mishnah, shenitlu korotav olechayev. Now remember, the Korah was that top beam that we talked about in the first parak. The top beam was sort of forming what is ka'ain, like a gate, like an archway, like a gateway, like a tsuras hapetach even. Like it looks like there's an opening over the mavui to separate it from the Rishis Rabim, and the lechayav, or the lechayayim, or the side posts to make it sort of like a doorway separating the mavui from the Rishis Rabim. So if those fell down, then what's the din? So mutarin ba'oto Shabbat. So on that same Shabbat, if they fell down on Shabbat itself, they'd still be mutter to carry in those places. Again, if there was a shituf in the mavui, then all the residents of the courtyards in the mavui could carry. If there was a eruv in this chatzer, and the case of the house, of course, they could carry within the house the kelim that were already in the house. So they say if it fell down on Shabbat, they're mutter ba'oto Shabbat. That very Shabbat, they'd still be mutter to carry. They're asurin lati levo. But in the future, next week, they cannot carry. They'd have to fix it. They'd have to fix the walls or the lechi and korah. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer im mutarin l'ota Shabbat. If they're mutter that Shabbat, mutar nati levo. They should always be mutter. Im asurin nati levo, asurin l'ota Shabbat. He says, and if they're going to be forbidden in the future, it should be forbidden right now. We shouldn't be machalek this Shabbat versus next week. So we see the chiluk here is Rabbi Yehuda holds that if it was the walls were good, the lechi and the korah were good when Shabbat started, then it's good to go. We saw a similar case if you had your Erev Techumin existed when Shabbat started, and then it was eaten by someone else later, and animals got it later, then it's still good, because at the moment Shabbat started, it was valid. So that's Rabbi Yehuda's logic. Rabbi Yossi says, no, it's not the case. If it became invalid during Shabbat, then that mechitza, that fence or border or wall is no longer valid for that Shabbat entirely. Yashar koach, have an easy fast and a Chag Purim Sameach.